Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Self-Published Success, show that highlights forward-thinking authors who chose self-publishing over traditional, found success in doing so. My name is John Feldman, founder of Visionary Literary, and your host for today's show. Our guest today is Harry Spaight. Harry is a leading keynote speaker and a sales consultant who has achieved remarkable success in sales. He's the author of Selling with Dignity and the host of the Sales Made Easy podcast. And today he's here to talk to us about how we can sell our books and services without being salesy. Harry, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here, John. Really appreciate you having me today, and I look forward to being of value for your audience.
Excellent. We are excited to have you. One thing we were mentioning before we hit record here was my experience trying to sell books and then seeing others selling their books is Twitter feeds filled with just an image of a book cover and available anywhere books are sold. And it makes me cringe because I see zero traction on those kind of posts on any different selling mechanisms. So really excited to see what you can bring to the show, what you have to offer, given your wealth of experience.
Awesome. Yeah, that's those are cringe worthy. I
They
feel the
sure
same
are.
way. So I don't think I've done any of those, but man, if I have, I cringe even at the thought. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I will admit that I'm guilty many years ago of doing the same, but I've learned since. And given your expertise, I'm excited for what the show can bring. So speaking of your expertise, let's take a step back. Tell the listeners a little bit more about you, your background, and what eventually made you want to write your book.
Yeah. So I appreciate, again, you having me here and this opportunity to help some of your folks. So sales has got an ugly sense about it, right? I mean, nobody wants to be around salespeople. They run from them. They see them in the grocery store. They turn the opposite direction,
Right.
hide down a different aisle, right? You name it. We've all done it. So I look at sales completely different. I look at it coming from a place of serving others. So prior to my sales career, I was a missionary, or I did mission work, spent some time in the former Soviet Union, knocked down pieces of the Berlin Wall, and spent a couple of years in the Dominican Republic with my wife.
Wow.
And had some great experiences. It was all adventure. I mean, it's not like I'm some righteous person. It was a lot of adventure and some helping people. And, we got way more out of it than we could ever possibly give. So coming out of that background and getting into sales, I just started applying this whole serve others first mentality, which a lot of us grew up with around church. Washing the feet of the disciples, the apostles, and all the things about that. It's like, yeah, I can do this and we'll see if I can be successful, because I certainly didn't have any business acumen. So fast forward 20 plus years of becoming a $1 million sales performer, running sales teams, becoming a VP of sales at a Fortune 500 company in Washington, D.C. All of that was based on those same principles. And I said, you know what? I feel like I have something to offer. I'm going to write a book and see if some other people can benefit from it. So that's what I did. And that's where the title Selling with Dignity, to bring back some love and respect for the craft of selling, which I believe is of huge value for people. Thoughts?
I totally agree. And I think that it's funny that you mentioned just selling with dignity and your whole idea of the sales approach. When anyone would think of a VP of sales for a Fortune 500 company in DC, you would think like, I don't know, high energy, pushy, like that's what I would think. But then you come on here and you're just you're calm, you're the dignity, you're trying to have an honest and humble approach to the sales process. So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean I can be very high energy. I mean, don't get me wrong. So there's I played hockey for a number of years, and people would say, you have an alter ego when you're on the ice.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I have an alter ego in the sales bullpen too. Not like you see in the movies, but it's a lot of rah, you're awesome. I love what you're doing. Look at this. We got a rock star over here, and having fun with that. And people love, and this I got, believe it or not, John, uh, I got to give credit to that, to Mary Kay's organization. Uh, Prior to that, I was one of these barking order sales managers because I thought that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. And so I went out to, my wife was doing Mary Kay at the time. I went out to Dallas, went to this Mary Kay conference, and it was just all motivation, all, praising the people there. And I said, I'm going to take this back to my office.
Yeah.
And we started doing, all kinds of things that were related to that, right? Celebrating people, celebrating small wins, putting signs up all over the office. People thought we were nuts, right? We were doing chants, 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 right? We were doing smiling, happy customers loving us, right? And high fives. And we're just, everything was about positivity and motivation. And our sales went through the roof with that. Built a sales team, and it's like people on other sales teams like, can I be on your team? You guys have so much fun. And here I was in Washington, D.C. It's like you think of the sales leader that was just going to be the jerk. And I just didn't let the pressure get to us. And we just had some fun. And so, yeah, it's a much better way to sell.
Well, that's interesting, because that just, again, my mindset as, what a VP of sales would be for a big company. I think of, speaking of books, The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. I forget which part it was, but it's some story about one of his salespeople. And he said he was standing up at a podium during a sales presentation and said, bring $500,000 per quarter into the company, or I'm going to put a bullet in your head.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
So
that's not me.
Yeah. That's a major difference. So when I was thinking VP of sales, I would always think that, like, that you hit your numbers, you hit your quotas, or you're gone. So, like, be as pushy and demanding as you need. Like Grant Cardone says, keep going until they call the police on you. So maybe I'm reading the wrong sales books.
My goodness, please. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're tainted.
Yeah.
All right, let's get the sofa out. we're gonna go through why you think sales is like that. But yeah, I actually read Winning by Jack Welch. And so I applied that for a brief spell, which was get rid of the bottom 10%. A lot of that. That's really what stuck out in my book. There's probably a lot of other things in there that were really good.
Yeah.
But I kept looking. It's like, I got to get rid of the bottom. And, I was actually pretty kind, I think, and the way I let people go, because I was like a career coach for them. It's like, you're not really happy here. I can tell. It's like, what is it you really want to do? And people are like, oh, thank God, someone said, because, people would put themselves as saying, like, I know I can do this in sales, right? And they didn't want to, right? When you say, I know I can do this, pretty much you're trying to convince yourself that you're doing something that you don't really want to be doing. And when I sense that with people, it's like this is a common trait. It's like they looked at them as competitively. And, we were selling copiers in Washington, D.C. I mean, there were 20 pages in the yellow pages, right? This is right when Google was coming out. 20 pages dedicated to copier sales in the nation's capital. It's like, talk about competition.
Yeah.
And so everything was hyper competitive. And so how this helps people in a sense that is that you can separate yourself purely in a saturated market by just being yourself and having a good identity. And that's what people buy. If you have friends, your friends like you for a reason. If you don't have any friends, that's a whole nother problem. We'll talk about that. But if you have friends, they like you for a reason. Buyers will like you for those same reasons.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And in the saturated market, I'm right there with you, because as a hybrid book publisher in 2023, I feel like book publishing companies now there are more of us than gas stations. in the world. So we're everywhere. And anyone that I try to reach out to, especially because it is like a high ticket item for most,
Mhm.
it's very hard to stand out when others are being pushy and people are saying like, no, I'm not interested. I've already heard that from. I had a call last week, and the lady showed me 7 different emails that she'd received that same week for for book publishing. So yes, very competitive. But your approach, and that's what kind of drew me to want to have you on the show, was that my approach is authentic. I reach out to everyone personally. Whether someone else on the team does first or it's just me, I always like to have that personal approach. So with dignity,
Yeah.
um,
It's the way to do
selling.
it.
Yeah. Yes. So let's get right into your book, right? So
Okay.
now we are with anyone who has LinkedIn or Instagram knows that they are being sold to nonstop.
Mm.
We are constantly being sold to in today's world. Especially if you have like a C-level title or a VP title in your LinkedIn bio. How if you're an author of a book that can help people. So this might be more nonfiction specific, although fiction authors listen up, because
Mhm.
you could take some tips from this. But how do you stand out when there is so much competition, and but deep down in your heart that like that all the words you've poured into this book onto these pages can help someone.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great question, John. And if you're thinking about helping millions of people, forget about that thought, right?
Yeah.
Think about helping one person.
Yes.
When you think about helping one person, you get one person that says, "Thank you. This is a game changer. Thank you. This means so much to me." I can't tell you how many times that one person has said something in a comment or on a phone conversation or after it's one of my clients that just, I just like, this is the reason. It's not about, millions of dollars. You know, it's about helping people. And if you're, I'm not that there's anything wrong with millions of dollars, but ultimately it's not the money that makes people happy, right? And you look at all of the stories about people that just pursued money and sacrificed family and sacrificed relationships. Well, the same is true in this endeavor, right? Where you're writing a book and you say, well, I'm going to be a New York Times bestseller. It's like, okay, I mean, there's not a lot of chance for that, but if that's your dream, I mean, I'm not going to say, no, that's impossible. But think about helping a small group of people. And from there, you'll help others. And then that community can grow. But there's a lot of value in, I don't know if it was a musician or somebody said, have a tribe of 1,000 people. And 1,000 people, not a million, but 1,000 people, you can earn your income, you can earn your living from 1,000 people typically, or right around that number, right? Maybe it's a little bit more, maybe it's a little bit fewer. But if you think about if you're selling something, if you're writing a nonfiction book, you're probably offering something of higher ticket value. It's like, well, how many people do you need to buy your services? Is it a million or is it like, 50? So that's the kind of the balancing factor is I'm not looking for millions, I'm looking for individuals.
Yeah, that's so important too, because if you, like you were saying, that it's so most authors, I guess, call it like their street team, but it's like just a small group of maybe 50 people that are super passionate about what's coming out, whether it is fiction or nonfiction, just super passionate, super fans who are willing to go out and spread the message of your book because they care so deeply about
Mm,
it. So it is
yeah,
very important. Like you were saying, just focus on those small conversations first. You're not going to scale the mountain in a day, right? You're
right.
not just going to jump from one spot to the next. And just one thing is to like to remain calm too, because again, we today want things
Oh
now.
my
Snap your
goodness.
fingers, and we have everything. And we see someone on Instagram who is a rich author, and we're like, I want that. I want it tomorrow. But
Yeah.
that's something to note also, is that it's a little bit of a travel, a little bit of a hike to get those people.
Well, absolutely. And there's so much about comparison robbing your own joy in life. I've compared myself many times. And I grew up playing sports. I mean, it's just like you compare yourself in sports all the time, right? You want to be better on the team. You want to be the go-to person. And I never was, but I always wanted it, right? And I wish I was like that guy or whatever. And so this comparison is deeply rooted in us. And when people say comparison is the thief of joy, it's like, oh, right. So I compare myself, like I'm a big fan of Gary Vee. If I compare myself to Gary Vee, it's like, I am never going to have 1 million followers. I am never going to I don't even know why I'm doing this. This
Yep.
is such a waste. And that's the thief of the joy. So instead of comparing myself to someone like that, it's like, why don't I just learn from those types of people and where's the word I'm looking for? Imitate some of the things that they're doing and be better instead of throwing in the towel saying, well, I'm never going to be like so-and-so, so why bother? And that's, I think, a problem that a lot of people have is like, well, I'm never going to sell 1 million books. But look, if you help one person that thanks you, it's going to be more than one too, by the way. But if you think like that, it's going to be a lot of people, and you're going to feel great about your life.
Yes, yes, very important. And something that you mentioned before we hit record, which we can talk about now, is when you grow those conversations and you look for those, the small, growing that street team, right? Growing that small user base, the group of super fans. What you were saying before we hit record was that don't keep it a secret as you're
Oh
writing
yeah,
your book, right? So
yeah,
that's something, again, if we're on this topic of like things that we see on social media in comparison, I see it all the time. It's like hustle in silence and then surprise everyone. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way.
no,
You can't build, you don't just publish and then people flock to your book. That just doesn't happen. So talk a little bit about how authors can and why they should share some things as they write and as the publishing and writing process is taking place before the book is released.
yeah. I think there's a couple of things. One is that it's a great accountability partner. Social media. When you put out that you're writing a book and you're taking pictures of yourself and video and some of your challenges, and like some people, well, I mean, I don't even know if I did this, but it's like you deal with the frustration. It's like sometimes you feel like this is never going to get done, and then other days you're like super positive. And so I put a lot of stuff out there on social media through the process, and I was building my community, which I didn't realize a lot about what I was doing at the time. I was reading some things. One of the books someone gave me a real simple read was Share Your Work. And I think it's the same author because it's written like in a highlighter. It's written like in crayons. It's such an easy read and so valuable. But Share Your Work and Steal Like an Artist. I think it was the same author. It's two awesome books to help people who are not, where we're not self-promoting types. I'm an older individual, and so self-promotion was really awkward for me. And it still is to some degree, but I just said, F it, which is forget it. Right? If you're thinking I'm going to say F it, it's forget it. So I just totally throw in that it's like, it doesn't matter what people think anymore. I'm here to serve. And if people don't like my videos, so be it. Right. And so now it's like, I got no views on some shorts on YouTube. It's like 0 views. It's like, oh my goodness, forget it. Just keep going. Right. That's what I'm doing. So having the accountability of social media, building your tribe, and I'm constantly saying, I've got to keep getting better. This is how you do it. I wasn't great riding a bike when I first started. It wasn't great, eating with a fork when I first started, and all the things I learned. I wasn't great speaking English when I was learning the language, right? Still learning. So all of these things you just do and don't wait until you're perfect at it. And the same is true when you're writing a book. Just get the stuff out there, build your community. People are going to fall in love with you because you're genuine, and you're showing your faults.
Yep.
And the more you get of a community, the better it will be for you, because now you've got people that, I don't want to say that are going to buy from you, but they'll buy from you because you're serving them. Right. And so
Yeah.
why wait for that?
Right. So
I'm
that is
really long-winded. I'm fired up this morning, John.
I like it. We've both had our coffee. We've been talking a lot, but that's okay. That's leads to a good conversation. So now I want to talk about that. How again, just the whole sales process of coming at it from selling with dignity, right? So the title of your book, everything that you discuss in sales is with dignity, just not being the you know, push until the police are called sort of sales position. So when it comes to your work, what you do, how do you help people other than come on podcasts and tell authors what they should do to grow their brand?
Yeah, I actually help people to get better at sales. So, like, what you're a huge challenge for a lot of solo and smaller business owners is that they were really good at knowing what their business is, just not really good at selling. So
Yes.
there's the two challenges are they either are only talk about their business, or they don't talk about it enough because they're afraid of coming across as a salesperson. So they're either obnoxiously talking about their business or not enough. There's very few that have that fine balance. And the balance is learn about the other person that you're speaking to, put them first. So it's just like, if you're hanging out with a group of friends and someone's new and you're sitting next to them at a table or wherever,
Mm.
you're not going to just say, let me tell you about me, because I'm really awesome. And I'm
Right.
going to tell you all the things I do. It's like, so I'm going to start when I was 5. No one does that. They're going to say things like, so what is it you do? Or where are you from? Or are you from, do you have family? And we're asking all these questions. Well, when people get in sales mode, they think that they have to be different. And you don't, right? You still want to ask those questions and then discover, what some of the challenges are. This does not often happen on the first conversation,
Mm.
right? So you're having some conversation and you just have to say chill, because people who have a conversation, they want to say like, well, is Harry a prospect? And if I don't give them the right answers, they might say, well, so this is what I do, and cut to the chase. And when you do that, you're just cutting off the relationship, because none of us like to be pitched and say, okay, I see there's no value in me. So let's cut to the chase, which means I'm going to get rid of all of your nonsensical small talk and talk about me.
Hmm.
Right. And that's not good. And I've had people who do that to me that I could have introduced them to my community. And I'm like, dude, you're all about yourself. I'm not.
Yeah.
You want to be around people that can help sponsor you and support you. You just cut yourself off by saying, let me cut to the chase. It's weird but that's what selling is for some people. So what
Yeah.
I'm saying is develop the trust, the relationship, and then in future conversations over time, and maybe 2 or 3 conversations, you can say, is this person a real prospect for what your services are? And then then you're now, they're in this some kind of little sales process, if you will, right? They're showing interest, you're asking questions, you're doing discovery, as they say. And then at the end of that conversation, and when you kind of feel like they're a good candidate, right? You don't know if they're going to buy from you yet, but you just feel like there's more opportunity. You say something like, John, this has been a great conversation. Really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed learning about you. Would you be up for doing this again, say in a couple of weeks? Would that work for you? And we'll just continue the conversation. How does that sound? And if you say, no, I'm all set, Harry, you're wasting my time. It's like, cool, not a problem. How about we stay in touch periodically? You'll see you on social media, right? I'm not going to like, oh my God, I'm devastated, right? But if you say, yeah, sure, let's do it. And I say, how about we put it in the calendar? Want to do 2 weeks from today? How's that sound? Right. And so it's just very soft. And I don't want to say, let's do it tomorrow. Right. Because this is the thing about the overly eager salesperson. It's like, well, this is great. I'm going to put you in the funnel. I think I can close you next week.
Yeah.
Let's talk tomorrow. Right. That's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So instead, just put it out there and just keep building, your community of people who are potential candidates, and do that over time. And then good things will happen over time is the way I approach it.
That is an excellent piece of advice. And for the nonfiction authors, especially listening, who have businesses, or you're some kind of, coach consultant, you want to see your ROI in bigger numbers, that these are excellent approaches. And then for the fiction authors listening, Harry, what you said there at first was don't sit down at the table and start talking about me. So going all the way back to the beginning, when I was saying, when I see people trying to sell their books to unknown, prospects on social media, it's like, me, like, this is what the book is about. This is what it's about. And you should instead say, this is how it will help you. This is what you will get out of it. So that's an important message that I learned the hard way, obviously, because I was, mass posting the wrong way for a long time, but just good things to learn. So Harry, if people want, where can they find Sell with Dignity? And then if people want to work with you, if they're like, man, I really need help with selling either my books or my services, where can they reach out and find you?
Yeah, so Selling with Dignity is easy to find. So it's that.com. And then if they just want to have a conversation, we'll put it in the show notes. Maybe it's harrychat.com. It brings you to my Calendly. And I'll just help you with the sales, for your listeners. If you're struggling and you're saying, look, this is where I get hung up on, I'll just help you through that. I'll either tell you that's normal, or that's really not a prospect. You're wasting your time there. Put them, maybe touch them every 6 months, but they're not really another set of eyes can help you. That's what I've been doing for years in sales, is helping another set of eyes of what reality might be for you.
Yes. And that is, I will put all of that information inside the show notes so that anyone listening can go through. Also, if you need help with sales, and you want to listen to a podcast, Harry's podcast, Sales Made Easy, go subscribe and listen to that. Harry, thank you again for being here. Excellent conversation. I honestly do feel like we could have spoken for hours. We didn't even get into some of the things that we were talking about before we hit record, because conversation just carries itself. And like I said a little bit ago, we both had our coffee and we were both doing a lot of talking. So we'll have to have a round 2 of this soon. But for round 1, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for putting up with me, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Harry.